Hello artists, and welcome back to virtual art class with myself and Mrs. Konechka. We will be having two separate videos this week for our art challenge because it is a little bit lengthy and we both just really wanted to do some more instruction on it and really show you how we create our still life drawings this week. So as you can see, we are going to be doing a still life. You can see my finished product right here, and I'm going to be walking you through how we are going to do this week. So let's jump into that lesson right now. For this week, as you can see probably on the screen right now, I have some objects in front of me, a piece of paper, and I also have materials such as a pencil. I do have a pencil sharpener, not necessarily a requirement, but very helpful. And then I also have this little blender right here. If you do not have a blender, you can also create a blender. I'll show you how to do that with just a piece of paper in a moment. And what we are going to be doing this week is we are going to draw. Okay, we have been using a lot of materials such as a lot of found objects that you can find around your home or simple things, even just like aluminum foil to create art. This week, we are going to get back into some drawing and kind of revisit that. Most all of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders have had the opportunity to draw what's called a still life, to be exposed to what a still life is. So this is going to be just a kind of reteaching of that, as well as challenging you to improve your skills and really just get back drawing again. If you remember, and kind of thinking back in your brain, a still life involves a few objects that you get to organize in front of you how you would like. You have control over picking those objects, and then you are drawing them from life. They are not moving, they are still. You are drawing them just as you see them. And so that's what I'm going to be walking you through today. And then hopefully you will take it upon yourself to do this challenge and have some fun drawing. So for objects, keep it to 3 to 5 objects. You can choose those objects. You can keep them quite simple, or you can challenge yourself. Maybe one of your objects may be a little bit more complex, a few more curves or edges, maybe some different values to it, light and dark values. So you get to choose those objects, 3 to 5, okay? You can see that I am using 3 objects today. I have a mug, and I want you to notice also how I set these up. So on the screen, you're gonna see up in the right-hand corner a photograph of exactly how I am looking at these objects. I'm choosing to put my mug nice and tall. So this is hierarchy. So this is our highest object here, okay? Our next object that kind of comes down a little bit, I just have a building block. So then I have my next object, I have a maraca, okay? And I have that laying so that I can see a lot of it, but I can still see the base of my mug here. So my 3 objects like this, you can be very creative in how you set them up, but you're going to notice too is that these objects overlap, as opposed to I do not just have them side by side. It's good for you to challenge yourself a little bit and have your objects, meaning one is kind of in front of the other. And then when you're drawing them, they look as if they're overlapping. So there's my objects, setting them up. It is helpful to set them on, I would call it like a non-distracting surface. So you can see I've set it on a large sheet of white paper. You may not have this. Maybe you have a white bed sheet. Maybe you have a white countertop, or even gray, or even up against black too. Something that's just maybe one solid color or no color. You don't necessarily need to have something behind it. I did that today, so it was a little bit easier for you as a viewer to see it, and it really is easy as the artist as I'm drawing. So those are just some tips to make it a little bit easier for yourself. I do have a white sheet of paper. Now, you may not have a white sheet of drawing paper. Maybe you just have lined paper, or maybe you have gray paper, or maybe you have even construction paper, anything, or even the back of like a piece of printer paper. It does not have to be something weighted and a little bit heavier like this. This is just what I have at my home, and this is what I'm using. So what you have, just use that. If you have just a basic number 2 pencil or HB pencil, I would just make sure it's nice and sharpened, and a sharpener for that. If you have, I know that a handful of my students have a set of pencils that have different sizes based on how hard or how soft the graphite is. I would encourage you to use those, okay? I'm just going to use this so that students can see what we can accomplish with just a regular number 2 pencil. Okay, so we're going to get started here, and you should still see my picture, the picture of the items up in that right-hand corner that I'm going to be drawing, okay? Now, when you're thinking about it, you want to make sure that you have your paper either portrait style or landscape style, okay? Actually, I'm going to push these in just a little bit because I want that mug to look tall, but I also want to be able to get my other objects on here. So I'm going to try and keep it within the borders of my paper. I'm going to try and make sure my objects don't go off of my paper. So the basic thing that you're going to start out with is just a sketch. Draw it light until you get it right. Okay, so draw very lightly, and then once you have that down, then we're going to do some bold outlines. So as I'm looking at my objects, sit myself up here a little bit so I can really see them. Okay, and I'm just going to start sketching them out. Now, I'm going to start out with the one that's farthest behind and the tallest. So this is my mug. It has an ellipse, which is the top part. It's a circular shape. I know that it's a full, like perfect circle if I was looking down from it. Okay, but obviously I'm not looking right. My perspective is not looking right down from it. So I see that circle. Okay. Then this object, it comes off the edge and it curves down. I can see this angle. I can take my pencil and actually use my pencil as a guide to see how that is able to, like how far it's going to down. How far is it angling? Is it this far? Okay, so that you can use your pencil as like a really nice guide for that. Okay, I know that the base of my mug, sometimes we forget and we just draw a straight line across. But this is a sphere. This is a kind of oval or circular object. So I know that the base of this has to curve. I know that that has to curve. And since my mug is designed where it's angling in, okay, I should, when I look at this curve of the top of my mug up here, it's going to be wider than this curve down here, okay? All right. And curve that in, kind of go back and really curve those edges in. All right. Now, I'm going to draw the handle. And kind of notice where I put this too, okay? It's not way over here, all right? If I put it way over here, then my Moroccan, when I start to draw, it's gonna go off the page. I wanted it centered, all right? Okay. Next, I kind of see, I have to look at this edge of my mug and like where it comes down. So this line, I'm gonna use my pencil to kind of see the angle of that, okay? This is curving around and it actually curves into the mug, okay? Then comes down just a little bit. Okay, because this is an actual structure shape. I can see the top part of this, but then it comes together and then I start to see the inside. This is just the edge I'm seeing. But I also want to point out that also it goes back because I can see the inside of this handle and it's receding back, and the difference is kind of in the distance is kind of in the back there. So I also have to draw this little part here and it's going to come up. Okay. And then it is just going to fade, kind of connect right in there, because I can't see underneath of it because I'm seeing the top of this. I don't see underneath of that, so I just have to draw it into the mug there. All right, I've got that down. That object's good for right now. I'm gonna go over and take a look at my next object. Okay, now let's take a look at this structure. You're still gonna be seeing it up in the upper right hand corner. I noticed this is it's a rectangle, all right? And so I know that with a rectangle, these are parallel lines, all right? So here and here, they should be the same angle, okay? And same with this, kind of, I'm calling it a line, you know, that's how I look at it. I look at this specific shape, and that makes it very helpful if you just break the object down into different shapes and kind of use your own knowledge, understanding that both of these lines right here have to be the same distance apart, and they also need to be kind of going in the same direction. Same with these two, or else it would not be a rectangle and not create this square kind of cube object that it is. So how far is it? So we go to our mug here and kind of come down. Okay, especially from where I'm looking, it almost comes about halfway up. Okay, and it just, so I'm gonna say about right here. Okay, and now this is angling this way. It's not straight across. Okay, it's angling. I'm gonna show that. Okay, now how wide is it? Well, we know we can't come so far this way that it ends up being a square. We gotta maintain that it's rectangular. Okay, this line right here has to be the same, kind of going in the same direction as the line, or should I say the edge across from it. Okay, so let's create some connection there. And they also curve at the edge a little bit. It's not quite a point, which is probably good because little kids play with this. Those points would kind of probably hurt. Okay, that's the top part. Let me erase this little line here because you see how it's kind of coming in front of a little bit of the mug. Okay, now it's going to come straight down. Looking at this edge, this is the farther edge that's back. Using my pencil again, it's going to come straight down. Now, we also know that the width, the thickness of this is exactly the same here, but your perspective, it may be foreshortened, okay, because this is kind of the way the objects turn. And so now I'm going to draw this line again, and I'm going to come down. Remember the angle of this edge right here? I want to draw that same angle. You didn't think I'm a little bit curved here. I'm going to draw the same angle. Okay, notice I curved it. This is coming straight. All right. Okay. Could do some measuring here, kind of using your fingers. I actually am kind of thinking I need to go back just a little bit because I think I was a little bit too far down. Okay. All right. Okay. Here's where it can be a little bit tricky. So I have these circular shapes that are popping out here, right? Because that's where you would connect to another piece. So I'm going to draw it first as if those are not there. So I'm going to bring this edge right across from it. I'm not going to come all the way down because remember this is angled. So this edge here should also be at the same perspective, the same angle as that one. Now I've got to draw the circular pieces that are coming out. Okay. So for my first one, I can see here, if I'm looking at the very base of that, it kind of butts up right to the edge. Okay, so that's the top part that we see of it. Now it extends out. So this is where I want you to remember what I said. Look at shapes, break your object down in shapes so we know that this circle goes all the way around. I just can't see that. Look, here's another circle, and here's another circle. So look at those as lines, imaginary lines that you've seen. You're going to draw those lines. All right, now I have to come out a little bit. All right, I'm going to draw this one as if I am seeing that whole part. Oh, another thing to make note of, should kind of connect. So as this one curves around, so it kind of, this is almost like a straight line here, connects into that circle. Comes down, then I've got my other circle right here. Okay, now down below, these are kind of underneath, but still the same. You're gonna draw what you see, and then you can go back and erase. Erase, fix, adjust. So I can't see some of those lines now that are being covered up. So if you have a long object like this, I would kind of remember to, now we're gonna go back at our mug and kind of see an imaginary line almost coming down, and then how far out is that extending? Okay, not very far. And that's gonna help me. So imagine if there's a line here, and go back and erase that. So the Moroccan itself, the tip of it shouldn't go farther than that. This is called really looking at the relationship between the objects. How close are they to one another? Or how far away are they? What's the size difference? Just looking at the outermost edge of this and not drawing those interesting. Oops, see, I already see that I have to fix something. This needs to be up based on where I'm sitting. This needs to be up like this because it almost runs into kind of part of the mug. So it's okay. Remember, that's why we draw it light so we get it right. Okay, the edge of this is kind of round, and I can almost see a little ellipse on the base of that. Also kind of look like, where is, from the end of this object, how is it, if I was to kind of draw this imaginary line, where is it in relationship to that object? Like, how far does it go out? All right, so I have the basic outline, as well as I would call also kind of our contour lines, which kind of give it more structure and gives more information about the object. Now, the next thing I would do is to do some strong, even more bold outlines, and then we'll get into shading. If I just have my objects like this, they do kind of look as if they're floating, so you have to ground them. So I'm going to pretend there's kind of an imaginary, you can actually see it with my paper in the picture, that there is kind of this imaginary table. This is like the back of the table that they're sitting on. Okay. And then I'm going to add some shading. I'm going to add some shadowing. And no, I'm not adding shadowing. Sorry. I am going to add shading, light to dark. When you are shading, you're really just looking at where is the shadows and where are those really dark, where are the highlights, which is your lighter areas, and also kind of looking at the colors of your objects. Finally, you can add what's called a cast shadow, which is the reflection of your object that creates quite a dark shadow onto your, depending what your surface is. If you do not have a well-lit area, I would suggest having your objects positioned in a place either near a light that's kind of casting some reflection on it, so you can have some shadows coming off of it, or sitting next to a window. That's helpful too, to get some natural light hitting your objects. Then you can actually see more of a stronger variation of different values from light to dark. So here is kind of how I'm going to finish this. So there you have just an example of a still life drawn with a variety of values of shading from light to dark. And you were able to see from the beginning, we started out with our basic sketch. Then I outlined and created some very bold lines. So I just made things a little bit darker. Then I kind of went from one object to the next. Sometimes I move all around the artwork at a time, but I tried to stick to one object to the next and started to fill in the different values with shading. Whatever you are able to accomplish, and your goal is just to take it from where you usually are at drawing and just kind of upping your skills just a little bit above that. So I encourage you in that, and I hope it is fun for you. And don't get frustrated with it. Obviously, Mrs. Yeagley's been drawn for a long time, so mine looks like this, but I wouldn't want to draw something halfway for you. I wanted you to be able to see how much time and effort and energy I'm putting into it, and I hope that you'll do the same for yours and continue to practice those drawing skills.